What's good, family? And I'm back. We're going to discuss tonight a little bit about the results of the New York Jets 2023 draft class. I know it's Friday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. It's late. I can't sleep. So I figured I'd hop on here and talk to you guys about football. So, and again, I know I'm super late, but I've had people reach out to me and say, Vin, when are you going to talk about this draft? When are you going to talk? When are you going to talk? When are you going to talk? Okay, I'm here. Let's talk the results of the New York Jets 2023 draft class. I will also save a overall team grade at the end. And as I always ask you, questions, comments, concerns, drop it there below, and I follow up with everybody. And for those of you that don't know, you can also find me on Twitter at Vin and the Jets. That's VINANDTHEJETS. Let's get into it round by round. Round 1, pick 15. The New York Jets selected edge Will McDonald from Iowa State. Now, this is something that completely sideswiped almost the entire fan base when the biggest issue with this team, with the problems we had last year offensively, was offensive line depth. I mean, for God's sake, we were playing fifth and sixth string tackles on the left and right side, just scrambling to make things work last year. And when the first three tackles flew off the board, of course, good old Bill swoops in and gives the Pittsburgh Steelers a discounted deal to move up from 17 to 14 to literally screw the Jets out of Broderick Jones. And when you look at the Jimmy Johnson's trade value chart, to move up from 17 down to 14, just ahead of us, it's actually a third round value. He gave it to him for the fourth round selection, just for the sake of screwing us. So thanks again, Bill. Even 20 plus years later, you're still trying to stick it to this team. So I've tried to warm up to this draft selection. As we go through all of our draftees, I'm going to offer pros and cons from my research that I've done on each one of these individual players. I by no means am I a college football analyst, so I'm not trying to make myself out to be one, but let's talk about it. From what I've been able to gather on Will McDonald, he was a 2-year starter at Iowa State, and I like that. He set the school record at Iowa State with 34 career sacks. It's number one in school history. And he's got an absolute excellent burst off the line. He's a really bendy, twisty guy. He can get around. I mean, there's videos of the guy on YouTube jumping off of or over cars. So, very athletic kid. What are his cons? Here's the problem. The Jets are very deep at pass rusher. You got Carl Lawson going into his final year, JFM, Bryce Huff, Michael Clemens, Jermaine Johnson, who we just took at the bottom of the first round last year. So what I think is going to happen is Will McDonald's going to be a rotational piece, kind of be put into the game on special situations, third and long, third and short, the guy that you need a big defensive stop on. And that's the thing. Me personally, your first three selections need to be day one starters. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just my opinion. Again, I don't hate the pick, but I don't love the pick. At the end of the day, the kid had a second round draft grade, and the Jets reached for him at pick 15. Does that mean he's going to fail in the NFL? No, I just think they really reached. So it is what it is, and I'm going to support the kid because at the end of the day, we're all Jets fans. Let's go to the next pick, which happened to be my personal favorite pick of this entire NFL draft. Round 2, pick 43, we took Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. Pros, once again, another 2-year starter. And what I love about the kid, he's very, very versatile. Not only can he play center, he can play guard. He's 6'6" as a center. Very athletic kid. He was the number one center in the nation. We got him at the top of the second round. That's excellent value. He allowed only 1 sack in 3 years. That's unbelievable for his size. Unbelievable. And that's what we need to start doing. If with Aaron Rodgers as our new quarterback here, we have to build a wall to protect him and keep him upright. Keep in mind, the guy is 39 years old. He will hit 40 during this season. So, I mean, all it'll take is one wrong hit the right way, wrong way, whatever, that will ruin our season. And we know about devastating injuries being here as Jets fans. So Those are his pros. What are his cons? He's going to have to compete with Connor McGovern. McGovern, brought him back. I believe that's on veteran minimum, somewhere between $2 and $3 million. It's a 1-year deal. I don't believe any of it's guaranteed. And you know what? I welcome competition. Does Aaron Rodgers want to take snaps from a rookie center? I don't know. But with that being said, I fully believe he wants the absolute best talent to be in front of him, protecting his life out there. So, you know what? I'm going to be rooting for Joe Tippmann because I think he could be the next center for the next 10 years for the Jets. I mean, here, historically, we've been spoiled with centers with the likes of Kevin Mawaz and Nick Mangold. Can he be the next great one? I hope so. So, other than that, in high school, he only played tackle. He's going to be able to have to continue to be a very versatile player because if, God forbid, he cannot beat out Connor McGovern for the center spot, he could play guard. And if a guy like Laken Tomlinson continues to struggle at guard like he did last year, God forbid, hey, I would say Tippmann, you want to go play left guard in place of Laken? Let's do it. So that's my take on him. My favorite pick of this draft. Round 3, we did not have a selection. Round 4, pick 120, we got Carter Warren, offensive tackle from Pittsburgh. 6'5", 324 pounds. Here's our tackle, but we didn't get him in the first round. He was in the 4th round. Why did he slip to the 4th round? Well, let's talk about his pros first. A 4-year starter at Pittsburgh and a captain. Going back to Joe Douglas's original philosophy of building a very high-quality character team. Captains, culture, leadership skills. These are the traits of the guys that you want to build your locker room around. He's a Paterson, New Jersey native, right down the street from the Jets facility, like 15 minutes away. I'm familiar with that area. So the guy isn't even traveling that far from home. So here's the cons of why did he slip to the 4th round. His senior year, unfortunately, was cut short by injury to his leg. That really hurt his draft stock. He's going to be competing this year with Max Mitchell to be the swing tackle. Long term, you got to figure he's going to fight for a starting spot once they make a decision at the end of the year what they're going to do on the left side. With Dwayne Brown most likely going to be retiring after 2023, and Mekhi Becton, they've already declined his 5th-year option. Is he on the team next year? It all depends how 2023 plays out. Are we going to be looking for that left tackle at the top of the 1st round next year again? I hope not, because if Carter Warren can show that he can be the guy when you put him into the game when need be, maybe he could be that guy long term. But again, the only way to do that is through reps. So hopefully he can hold up on that leg in the preseason and show us something that we could use him. So that's our 4th rounder. Let's go moving forward. Round 5, we went back to the University of Pittsburgh. We took running back Israel, hopefully I'm saying this right, Abanikanda, that's interesting. What are his pros? Electric speed, 4.44 speed at that, another 2-year starter. This kid averaged 164 yards a game, a true game breaker. He's got excellent vision, and that vision is second to none. What are his cons? Unfortunately, he's very slow after the first hit from a defender. He needs to be ready to accept a much heavier role, especially at the professional level. And he also needs to develop his skills as a blocker and as a receiver out of the backfield. He's got a very tall task to live up to another famous University of Pittsburgh running back. That would be Curtis Martin, my friend. And one of the scouts brought that to his attention when they called him to let them know that he was going to be drafted by the New York Jets. So I'm excited for Israel. I mean, does this spell the end for Michael Carter? Part of me kindly hope so. I've not seen anything out of Michael Carter that shows that he's a starting running back in the National Football League. Breece is going to be our guy. Whether or not he hits the ground running as RB1 come September, who's to say? I mean, there's running backs that have recovered very quickly from torn ACLs. The first one that comes to mind is Adrian Peterson, who did a hell of a job when he came back in Minnesota. But again, could this spell the end of Michael Carter? Possibly. I think they knew they were taking a running back in this draft because of the struggles. Bam Knight, I could see fighting for a roster spot. And worst comes to worst, I would stash Bam right onto the practice squad and don't let him go. So I like the pick. It was excellent right there. Very good value for the 5th round. So let's go to round 6. Pick 184, we went with Zaire Barnes, a linebacker out of Western Michigan. What are his pros? 4.54 speed. He brings depth to an already crowded linebacking room. He's a kid that went all-state in high school, and he's a very, very, very consistent tackler. Always got high numbers in college. What are the cons? Torn ACL in 2020, unfortunately. His read and react skills need to improve. He must be able to learn how to play on special teams if he expects to make the week 1 roster. What does that mean? Kickoff, kick return, punt team, punt return. Any which way to get onto the field. That's how you get your name known out there. Some New York icons, both with the Jets and Giants, that made their names known via special teams. Here with us with the Jets, the first name that comes to mind, Ray Lucas. And for the guys, the fans of the crosstown rival Giants, it would be Jeff Hostetler. Backup quarterbacks who wanted nothing more to just get on the field. And how did they do that? On special teams. And sometimes that's the only way you catch the coach's eye. So I wish him luck. Round 6, pick 204. This one's an intriguing one. Jarek Bernard Converse, corner from LSU. What are his pros? He's another one with electric speed, 4.39 to be exact. Very, very athletic kid. He played both corner and safety. He started by playing safety at Oklahoma State prior to him transferring to LSU, a 3-star recruit. So I like that about him. But what are his cons? Cons are he's good in coverage, but the thing is he needs to work on his ability to play man-to-man. He's a good zone safety when he plays safety, but playing to man-to-man out of his court, he really needs to work on that. He gets taken off balance very easily, and he needs more reps at safety because the thinking from the coaching staff is they're going to be converting him back to being a safety primarily. So you went from he went from safety at Oklahoma State to corner at LSU, now back to safety with the New York Jets. We'll see. Difficult, not impossible. But again, he needs to improve his coverage skills, especially transitioning to a new position at the professional level. Moving forward, and our final pick, round 7, pick 220, Zach Kuntz. Get that right. Let's say it again. Zach Kuntz. There's some Jets podcasters out there that are pronouncing it a different, very inappropriate way, but that's how you say it. Zach Kuntz, tight end from Old Dominion, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a 2nd division college. I could be wrong on there. Pros, 4.55 speed, very athletic, 6'7". He's a big boy, 255. A very, very sizable target, especially in the red zone. Many cons, unfortunately. Obviously, small school. He missed most of last season with a dislocated kneecap. Ouch, that one hurts. He's got a very slender body. He needs to put on weight, especially being a tight end. 255. He's 6'7". A man of his stature. I think he could stand to get up to even 260, maybe 265. But that being said, he needs to answer the call when it comes to his power and his physicality. He needs to work on his blocking skills, especially coming to a very, very crowded tight end room with you got Uzama, Conklin. They just took Jeremy Rucker last year in the 3rd round. You got Yabo on the practice team. So, honestly, do I see this kid making the opening day roster? Barring a catastrophic injury to multiple tight ends in that room, probably not. I think he's battling out with Yeboah for the spot on the practice team, if anything. Unless he does something completely over-the-top sensational, which I would love to see that. Like, when I was younger, I would pick a guy that was, undrafted or very, very lowly drafted and just root like hell for them to make the team. First of which was a guy like Wayne Corbett who came undrafted. But again, do I see this kid making the week 1 roster? Probably not. You have to understand, you get to the bottom of the 6th and then the 7th round, you're throwing darts against the board, trying to strike gold. So I wish him well. A very, very raw prospect, but maybe somebody we can develop in the future. So what do I see this draft as? Overall, as a grade, I'm giving it a B minus. So and they're like, well, Vin, you're too hard on that, right? I mean, why so harsh? Listen. Last year's draft between Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, that was probably the greatest draft that I've seen in my lifetime in the last 20 years. It's going to be extremely difficult to duplicate something of that magnitude. So let me explain why I came to that conclusion. The elephant in the room, the obvious one, is we missed out on a premier left tackle in the first round. Now, why did that happen? Well, we know why. Thanks, Bill. The Aaron Rodgers deal could have been tweaked a little bit differently. I don't think the pick swap was necessary. What do I mean by that? The condition to next year's draft pick, which right now stands as a second-round selection, gets elevated to a first-round selection should Aaron Rodgers play 65% of the snaps. Now, for the duration of his career, Rodgers has pretty much been an Iron Man. He hasn't missed that many games. So I'm thinking he plays at least 11 games, they're getting a first-round pick, which is almost a certainty, which means it would have to take a total disaster to happen for us to salvage our first-round pick. If I'm in that office or in that room when you're negotiating with the Packers, front office, I think I would have said hell no to the pick swap and just give them next year's first, because it sounds like they were going to get it no matter what. But what's done is done, and here we're at. It cost you Broderick Jones, and now we got to live with Will McDonald, because now the two of them are going to be compared to each other for the next 4 or 5 years. It is what it is. Moving forward, I think we could have taken a wide receiver with a day 3 pick and just given Aaron Rodgers even more targets. Does that mean they would have seen the field? No, not necessarily. But if we're going to be building a win-now team, don't you want to give him as many weapons as possible to just ignite this offense? So the fact that they didn't even address receiver kind of bothered me. I know they just recently signed Randall Cobb, but he's like 100 years old. And yeah, I know he's got a good rapport with them, a good relationship, blah, blah, blah. But the guy's on his last legs. Like, what is he, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, and you're paying him $3 million? I don't hate it, but it would have been nice to get a fresh prospect on a cheap rookie deal for 4 years. It's a conversation for another day. They brought in a whole shitload of undrafted free agents at the wide receiver position. You might get lucky and find a Wayne Chrebet, or you might get stuck with somebody like a Sharon Peak, Chancey Stuckey, piece of garbage. So, is what it is there as well. And the last one that really bothered me, not the most, but it did bother me, was you're drafting Jarek Bernard-Converse from LSU as a corner with the intent of converting him to a safety. Wouldn't it have made more sense just to draft a purebred safety? Our safety play last year was one of the worst in the entire league between LaMarcus Joyner and Whitehead. Now, Joyner, more likely than not, is going to retire. He's not coming back here, and I highly doubt anybody takes a chance on him. And Whitehead, because of the way the contract is structured, I think they're just going to give him a pass and just keep him there, and then either elevate this kid or one of the safeties. I know they really like Tony Adams, but he's really unknown when you really think of the grand scheme of things. Listen, at the end of the preseason, there's always surprise cuts when it all comes to an end, when they have to trim the rosters all the way from 90 down to 53. And don't forget, you can always make a move at the trade deadline. Call up one of the shitty teams or whatnot when they get desperate that want picks going into 2024. If a safety is something that you feel puts you over the top defensively, go for it. My philosophy when it comes to the draft, people don't like me saying this, I would trade our second round pick every single year for an established player. Every single year. Because you know how our history is in the second round. It ain't good. Look it up. And you keep your first round pick as your day 1 starter that needs to make an impact immediately. You can go about it many different ways. So guys, I appreciate you guys still tuning in, the loyalty, the questions, the comments, and just keeping the conversation going. Going to continue to do this. Still possibly looking to rebrand, still possibly looking for a co-host. I was approached by another show about maybe joining them. So if anything changes, I will let you guys know. And thank you again for, keeping the conversation fun. Unfortunately, after the draft, there's really no major talk about football until preseason. But hey, if something happens, I'll jump right on. Thank you again for tuning in, and have a good night.